Welcome to the new State of the Bay. I'm Ethan Elkind.
I'm Joseph Pache.
And I'm Grace Wan. This is your weekly conversation about where we live
and what matters most. We are live.
And we are local.
Every Monday night.
Right here on KALW.
Welcome to State of the Bay. I'm Grace Wan.
And I'm Ethan Elkind. On tonight's show, we'll hear from Judge LaDoris Cordell about her new book, Her Honor, My Life on the Bench, What Works, What's Broken, and How to Change It.
Then we'll talk to Reverend Paul Trudeau. He's the co-director of City Hope, an organization providing a trusted gathering place for San Francisco's marginalized residents.
But first, a tribute to the life and work of the late Wilma Chan.
Longtime Alameda County Supervisor Wilma Chan died last Wednesday after being struck by a car while walking her dog in the city of Alameda. Chan began her 3-decade career in public service on the Oakland School Board. She was the first Asian American to be elected to the Alameda County Board of Supervisors in 1994 and was the first woman and Asian American to serve as majority leader in the California State Assembly. An advocate for children, families and the elderly, affordable housing, and health care for the uninsured, Chan dedicated her life's work to serving the most vulnerable.
And tonight we remember Supervisor Chan with Alice Lai-Bitker, former president of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. Welcome, Alice, to State of the Bay.
Thank you.
And we're also pleased to be joined by Ralph Silber, executive director of the Alameda Health Consortium. Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm so sorry to both of you for your loss, as well as to all of her family and friends and constituents. And Alice, I wanted to begin with you. You met Wilma Chan in the mid-1990s and campaigned for her when she was running for supervisor, and you later served as an aide in her office before serving on the board yourself. So you had a very unique and intense perspective on her life. Can you tell us a little bit about her? What was Wilma Chan like?
Well, Wilma has been a great advocate, as everybody say, and such a strong leader. But actually tonight, I'm thinking about sharing some of more her personal side. I've been thinking about her. Why is she being so strong with her commitment to public service, the whole sense of social justice? So I thought about some of our conversation before, and she came from a very good family back in Boston, and her father was the first and only at the time Asian American insurance agent. And she was sharing with me how people cannot buy insurance. And before, like Chinese restaurants, the owners, if there's a fire, they have to take all the losses because there's no such thing as insurance coverage for them. And but her father really made a difference in that community. And I was just thinking about her sister, who organized garment workers in New York when Wilma, was coming of age and in college. And so, of course, during college time, she was very involved with social justice and with Jesse Jackson, the whole Rainbow Coalition. I think all that's accumulate into her sense of what she wants to do in this world to make a difference in people's life.
Well, Alice, I want to join Ethan in expressing my condolences to you. And I wanted to find out, Wilma Chan was described as having a quote-unquote quiet power in the San Francisco Chronicle by former Assembly member Sandra Swanson. What are your thoughts about that description of Wilma Chan being a quiet power?
Well, I think people who work with her know that she has clear vision and she knows how to be skillfully negotiating and sharing her point. But it's true. She is a more quiet in her personality. She's not the person when coming into the room, everybody, knows she's shining. She's not that type, but she definitely has her high intelligence and integrity when she approaches her work.
And Ralph, you've spent 3 decades as executive director of the Alameda Health Consortium, association of 8 nonprofit community health centers in Alameda County. And I know you worked closely with Supervisor Chan during that time. Can you share some of Wilma's greatest accomplishments that you observed in healthcare, both here in the Bay and beyond, in her role at the state level as well?
Sure. As Grace mentioned, Wilma was the first at many things, and I think we just can't underestimate what it meant to be. She was the first woman to be the majority leader in the California Assembly and the first Asian American to fill those shoes. And I think that provided a role model for many people in the community that what was possible. While Wilma was in the California legislature, she got many bills enacted into law that have literally saved the lives of Californians. On the environmental health side, she ushered into law a limit on lead in drinking water fountains, which is incredibly important, particularly for the development of young children. She also passed a law that outlawed cancer-producing flame retardants that was going into clothes and furniture. Wilma understood the importance not just of healthcare access, which is mostly what I work with her on, but that these environmental factors affected people's healthcare as well. Also, while she was in the legislature, Wilma got through a bill that added health insurance for 800,000 low-income Californians. She also got a bill signed into law that stopped hospitals from charging uninsured patients exorbitant fees for services. So I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that thousands of Californians, not just Alameda County residents, are better off today because of the work that Wilma did while she was in Sacramento. At the local level, if you live in Alameda or San Leandro, your community hospitals are open today thanks to Supervisor Wilma Chan. She led the effort when there was a threat that both Alameda Hospital and San Leandro Hospital would close. Wilma said that would not happen on her watch, and she moved heaven and earth, and those hospitals are open today to provide services to people who live in those communities. Wilma has always been a strong advocate for immigrants, both immigrants who are here with legal status as well as undocumented immigrants, and she's really supported our health centers to provide access to everyone, including people who have immigration issues. Most recently, during the COVID pandemic, Supervisor Chan recognized that if we were really going to fight this pandemic, we had to turn to trusted community organizations that could provide COVID services in the language that people needed, culturally appropriate in all the different geographic areas of the county. So until the day she unfortunately passed away, Wilma was working at the local level, as Alice said, on the social justice, the racial justice, the gender justice issues that were so near and dear to her.
I mean, it is quite a legacy, Ralph. And Alice Lai-Bitker, you were formerly a Board of Supervisors member in Alameda County. What do you think Wilma Chan's biggest contributions to Alameda County were?
Well, I was just thinking about all the things that Ralph mentioned. One of the things is she definitely have made such a big difference in the sense of for children and youth. When she started working as a member of board supervisor, immediately she see the need. There need to be more collaboration between city, school boards, and also the county. So she formed youth collaboratives in both Alameda and San Leandro, so that she brought the mayor together with the school board president and herself, working on things that can improve the life of children and youth. She was very instrumental back establishment of the first 5 in Alameda County. And so all the things that she has done is really for low income, for the underserved, for the children, for the family, and for seniors who are in need of a working government to work together.
And Alice, Wilma Chan, as we mentioned in the introduction, was both the first Asian American elected to the Alameda County Board of Supervisors and the first female and Asian American to serve as majority leader in the California State Assembly. Can you describe what you make of her impact on the Asian American community in particular, and what you see as her biggest legacy going forward in terms of that impact?
Well, I think the fact that having an Asian elected in the local jurisdictions, it means a lot because they can now have a voice. And I think for Wilma's legacy, I would say that for Asian community, she have encouraged us all along in terms of civic participation, representation, and holding public office. So she's going to want to see her legacy be carried on and having Asian American continue to be participating in politics.
And Ralph, I wanted to ask you, what are some of the policy issues that Wilma was working on that you'd like to see carry forward, so that her legacy can stay vibrant?
Well, as Alice mentioned, besides being committed to healthcare equity, Wilma worked very hard for young children and families with young children, and particularly low-income families with young children. And Wilma was one of the leaders of an effort in Alameda County to pass a half-cent sales tax, which is going to provide $150 million a year in Alameda County to support early childhood education. And what distinguishes Wilma and what this will be part of her legacy is that money will be not only to provide childcare for working families, but to increase the salaries for the early childhood workforce, which is mostly women of color. So I think, unfortunately, right now that revenue source is tied up in litigation. Hopefully that will be resolved. And then rolling out that program to improve early childhood education and to increase the wages of that workforce will be part of Wilma's legacy. I think coming out of the pandemic and doing that in a way that holds racial and economic justice at its center was something that Wilma worked on very, very close. And actually, one of the last things Wilma led on the Board of Supervisors was the initial plan for Alameda County's expenditure of the funds it's receiving under the American Rescue Plan Act. And she brought all the different communities to the table to come up with a proposal about how to spend those funds in our low-income communities to try to help them recover from both the pandemic and the economic fallout. So I think those of us who are involved in this work, who've known Wilma for so long and been inspired by her, are going to carry forward this work because it's so incredibly important.
And Alice, Wilma was known as somebody who could really bring disparate parties to the table and get deals done. What do you hope some of the legacies that she had what are some of the policies that you hope will be carried on?
I think the whole issues about school-based health clinics, that's something that she really spent a lot of effort to make that happen. And that's really become a model in many places as well. And the whole thing about mental health for seniors, for children, and for just anybody is something that she really want to provide as well. And Alameda County was very active to provide funding to make sure that there's access for mental health care from elementary school up. And that's a very important legacy that need to be continued as well.
And Alice, we obviously don't have all the facts about what happened to her on Wednesday when she was struck by that vehicle, but there's no doubt that this was a senseless tragedy and one that happens far too often in the Bay Area and beyond, where pedestrians are at extreme risk of getting hit by cars. And this was identified by the city of Alameda as a high-risk intersection. And I know you're on the county board of supervisors. You don't have jurisdiction over the city. But what do you think might happen here in terms of improvements to traffic safety going forward? Do you think that her death, as tragic as it is, might end up helping to save others by putting more political momentum into improving traffic safety?
I hope so. And I think that there are some efforts already knowing they need to have more safety to protect pedestrians. In fact, their organization working with the city, but I think hopefully this will give the momentum that's needed, definitely.
Well, and Ralph, what are some personal memories you have about Wilma Chan that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about Wilma and realized that one of the things we share in common, that we are both children of immigrants. And I think we both had this experience of wanting to give back to this country that welcomed our families when we needed to come here. One of my most distinct memories of Wilma is after she termed out of the assembly, I had worked with her for so many years. She was between gigs, and I called her and said, would you come spend some time with us at the Alameda Health Consortium, because it would be really helpful for us to learn more about how decisions are made in Sacramento. And to my surprise and delight, Wilma said yes, and she started working in our office part-time. And in retrospect, I was so naive. I didn't have a private office for her, and I pointed to a little tiny cubicle, which I wouldn't do. And God bless Wilma, because as Alice said, she was very humble. Even though she had been the majority leader of the California Assembly, she would come to work and she would sit in the cubicle and monitor what was going on in Sacramento and write notes and come in and sort of school me about how decisions are made in Sacramento. And I think that kind of humility is so rare among elected officials. It is one of my most distinct memories of Wilma.
Oh, we certainly need more politicians like that.
Absolutely, amen to that. And Alice, we just got a little less than a minute left. I just wanted to see if you had any final thoughts, as well as word on when a formal memorial service for Supervisor Chan might be.
Well, I think the families are still planning it, so I haven't heard about it. But one thing I want to say is Wilma was a great mother, and she worked very hard, put in lots of hours, but she started at 7:30, come in the office when nobody was there, and then she worked until 3:30 because she wanted to go home and be with the kids. She wouldn't want to miss any of the water polo that Darren was at, and she didn't want to miss opportunity to be able to go out with Jennifer for clothes shopping, things like that. So she really had her priority right as well in terms of taking care of the kids' needs.
Well, it's quite a legacy in terms of her personal life and all of the public service that we all benefited from with her leadership, both at state and local government. So Alice Lai-Bitker, former president of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, and Ralph Silber, executive director of Alameda Health Consortium. I just want to thank you both so much for coming on State of the Bay tonight. It's a very sad occasion, and we're very sorry for your loss, but we appreciate your time, and I want to thank you both for coming on.
Thank you.
And just a note to our listeners, you can find out more about Supervisor Chan's life and work by visiting our website.